By the way, I don't even agree with that. If you think you made a mistake and you're clear, it's best to move on as quickly as possible. But we know that's just not realistic, or it had not been realistic in the NFL world for many, many years. Teams do move quickly and more quickly than they ever have before.
Birds 365 hump day Wednesday, which means we've got John McMullen here at the top of the show. We were planning on having Jeff Kerr break down the communications. Unfortunately, Mr. Kerr can't join us, so you can get stuck with me all day. You were going to be stuck with me anyway, but we'll work some other aspects into the show. We got Jason Cole, national football writer, to join us next hour, but Jody Mac and I will give you a solid half hour of Eagles insight here. What insight did you glean from Coordinator Tuesday yesterday, John McMullen?
That's a good question, Jody. To start off, I got to think, was there much to glean? I thought it was a weird week from the defensive perspective. Like I said, there wasn't a lot to complain about, but I don't know what it really means against an offense that was as limited as the New York Giants. And then we find out later in the day that Daniel Jones, oh, by the way, got hurt early in the game, was playing through it. And he might be forced to miss a game or two for the Giants, and we'll see how that shakes out moving forward. They signed Jake Fromm, who I know you're a fan of the Buffalo practice squad. So he's going to be their backup if Daniel Jones can't go this week. And then, from the special teams perspective, there was a little Jalen Reagor returner questioning.
How'd that go?
It's the same as a receiver, I think. But I have a little bit more problem with it than I do at receiver. I get why they keep playing him at receiver, and I think that's more an indictment of Howie Roseman and the options, and we talked a little bit about that yesterday. At returner, I think they have some options, and Quez Watkins not being one of them. I thought he was even worse as a kick returner early in the season than Jalen. But I think Boston Scott has proven in the past that, look, he's not Cordero Patterson, but he's okay, and he'll get the yardage that's there, and he can return punts as well, and I think the same thing. I think the most disappointing return to me was the last return, and it wasn't, Jalen got 9 yards, I think, and quick. It was a bad punt. You remember, the game seemed over after the Boston Scott fumble,
right.
And all of a sudden the Eagles go out there, they stop the Giants really quickly, they get the ball right back. Riley Dixon with a really bad punt. Not a ton of hang time, maybe a little weather related. We're finally getting into that. I think we're in December. I got to check my calendar. So weather starts to become an issue when you talk about kicking. And it was all set up, and there was room, and he just kind of took the 9 yards, and that was it. And I don't know. He was supposed to be an explosive player, and that's a chance. Hey, Miracle Meadowlands, what better place to amplify that as a punt return that can make a difference late in the game? I don't know. I don't know. This team keeps defaulting to this player, and it's a concern for me. It's certainly a concern for the fan base, and I don't get it. He's played himself off the field, so take him off the field.
Let me ask you about something you just mentioned, because I had Ricky Ricardo. I know you know Ricky well, the voice of the Eagles in Espanol. I was on WIP last night, and Ricky was testing out his home broadcast equipment. Don't ask me what he was doing or why he was doing it at 1 o'clock in the morning, but he was. And I come back from a break, and my producer tells me, hey, Ricky Ricardo's on the line. He said, if you want to shoot the breeze with him, he'll hop on with you for a couple minutes. Of course I'll punch Ricardo up. And he was up at MetLife Stadium for the game on Sunday. They were broadcasting on the road, which is a good thing. Means that we're advancing a little bit in our ongoing battle against COVID. So Ricky was actually there. And he said he thought the wind was a factor in Sunday's game and that it may have had a Jalen Hurts ball or two hang up a little bit. I've certainly spent too many games at the Meadowlands when it was Giant Stadium and certainly now in the new MetLife Stadium as a jet ticket guy. It didn't seem that way to me. Now, I'm judging it from right over there on my couch. So what the hell do I know? I wasn't really there, but I've seen so many games played there. I think I can tell when the wind is a factor. And it didn't seem like that was the case on Sunday. I can tell you that is less of a case in the new stadium than it was in the old stadium. The old stadium, the wind could really play tricks on you, and it blew through that stadium very harshly. And it's not the same anymore. It's still the Northeast in late October. It wasn't quite, late November, wasn't quite December yet. But I didn't think the wind was a big player in the game on Sunday. You were there. Now you're in an enclosed press box, but you've certainly got a better look than any of us schmucks on TV. How big a factor was it?
Well, I'll say this, and you just said it. I mean, there's been a lot of wind games at the Meadowlands over the years. In the old stadium, Parcells used to open up the doors, so to speak, and play tricks, and it wasn't like that.
I actually think, sorry to interrupt, I actually think the Link is more of a wind-affected stadium than is MetLife.
Yeah, you have the one open end that kind of screws with some people, especially kickers at Lincoln Financial Field during weather games, obviously. And that's why as we get into December and January, that stuff's going to pick up. It was cold. I think it was about mid-30s. I know the wind chill was under 32 when the game started, but I mean, it was less than 10 miles an hour. It was probably in the 5, 6, 7 range, and occasionally a gust can come up, but it didn't have a major effect on the game. I wouldn't say that. And especially compared to other games, as you well know, at the Meadowlands complex as a whole, there could be some nasty games there. This was not, except for a little bit of a chill. This was not a bad weather game.
That's the way that I thought it played. I was surprised that Ricardo said what he did. But I'm not going to, and I don't want to look to make any excuses for Jalen Hurts because he had certainly his worst game of this year, probably comparable to any of the games that he had last year. And his status is up on the air for this weekend against the Jets up in that same building we were just referencing. And Shane Steichen didn't give you any extra information because I know the head coach said on Monday, yeah, we'll probably have a little bit better read on Wednesday, which is basically passing the buck down the line. Shane Steichen didn't pick the ball up and run with it, did he?
Yeah, well, actually a little bit more than you would expect. And the fact that he did admit that Gardner Minshew was at the complex and they're preparing him to be ready to play with the caveat of they hope Jalen plays, they plan on Jalen playing, but they have to be ready if he can't play. So it was a little bit more than I thought we would get. Today's obviously a far bigger day. Ultimately, I still think, and mainly because Nick Sirianni's been doing this all year with injured players, he thinks he has a competitive advantage, and he plays that card really hard. And I think it's overblown, overrated. Yeah. But he does it. And I think he's going to do it with Jalen Hurts. So I expect him to be limited today. And, he'll probably say it's going to go one of two ways. He might say he's not playing. If he really is hurt and he really want to play, we're going to be that limited, and we're going to see how it goes the rest of the week. Try to push it off as much as possible, and then by Friday, he won't have an injury designation, and you'll know he'll be ready to go. it seems like a bunch of nothing, but I don't know. He's not and by the way, he's not the only coach that does that. I mean, you go back last week to Joe Judge. Not, everybody in the world knew Freddie Kitchens was calling plays, and he was still trying to play around. Well, I don't know. We'll see, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, coaches are just weird when it comes to that.
Yeah, that's the beauty of a live broadcast. Every once in a while, the feed just goes out on you, and you're sitting here staring at a green screen. I got a green screen behind me. I'm not supposed to have a green screen in front of me on my computer, but we did. All right, so glad to be back here on Birds 365. McDonald and McMullen hanging with you. JM, we were talking about how the Eagles ferret out information on whether players are going to play or not. I don't think they're Well, I do think I should correct that. I do think they're purposefully willing and able to not put forth exactly all the information they have. And as you mentioned, the coach believes he gets a bit of a competitive advantage with that I think is kind of overstated. But as far as Jalen's ability to play, the Eagles have X amount of hours a week they can practice, same as every other team in the National Football League. And I know this is the head coach's first year, and we're judging him and how he dispenses information and then makes decision about injured players. We have not had any question with Jalen Hurts this year, so we have no track record to run on how he handles a quarterback that might not be able to practice as much as he usually does going up to a game. If that's the case, I'm going to ask you to speculate here a little bit here for me, J-Mac. He has done it with other players at other positions, and you said even hoodwinks, both us and the supposed opposition heading into a game during the week. Do you think how much Jalen Hurts practice is this week will affect the decision as to whether he will or won't play Sunday against the Jets?
It's an interesting question because there is a difference between veteran players who have done it for a long time and kind of know how to get through things without practice versus a very young quarterback, still young in his career, obviously still learning on the job, and practice and all that kind of stuff is very important. And then you have, obviously, you're playing the most important position on the field. That's very integral to everybody else as well. So you have that difficult balancing act of trying to get Gardner Minshew ready just in case.
Right.
So I do think there's no question Minshew's reps will be ramped up during the week. Is it going to be 50-50? Is it going to be 80-20? Typically, and I don't know if people know this or not, I mean, the first string quarterback gets all the first team reps. I mean, there's no, if they're healthy, there's no, we'll mix in this guy. Now, yeah, occasionally, and I would joke about this during training camp. You probably remember, Jody, somebody's got to tie a shoe. Somebody's got to go to the bathroom, little stuff like that. You got to jump in and take a rep. Never happened with Jalen Hurts. Never missed one preseason rep as the starting quarterback for the Eagles. So it's definitely a bit of a change. I think it more has to do with, do they feel he can be effective if he's limited? We look at the best quarterbacks in this league. In my opinion, the best remains Aaron Rodgers. People can debate that. He's playing with whatever's got going on with his toe, the broken toe, whatever. He's limited. He's playing pretty well. Check out his numbers over the last couple games with the toe injury. But he's got to go about it a little bit differently. He's not going to move around as much. He's not going to, and he's a sneaky mobile quarterback, as you know. He's willing to run the football when you give it to him. But that's a little bit limited. In the case of Jalen Hurts, it's the biggest part of his game is the running game. 77 yards against the Giants, really effective, almost 10 yards a carry. And this is every week. That's not an outlier.
No.
I heard that from some of the Giants fans. And like, well, we did pretty good against the run. If you take Jalen Hurts out of it, well, you can't take Jalen Hurts out of it, and that's every week. And that's why the Eagles have been rushing for 200 yards, almost every game, 4 out of 5, dating back over a month now. You take that from his repertoire, and he's sitting back in the pocket, and he's got to play a little bit differently. I don't know if the Eagles are comfortable with that. So that enters into the equation. He can certainly do it. The question is, can he do it effectively?
Right.
And if he can't run the football, that's the bigger question the Eagles have to ask themselves. Not only who gives them the better opportunity to beat the New York Jets, do you want them out there, for lack of a better description, to play poorly? It's a difficult decision.
And the reason why I think it's even more difficult, 2 points, is because whatever practice they'll get later in the week, Friday, the key practice they have on Friday, you're going to tell your defensive guys, try and make this as game-like conditions as you can, because they're trying to judge whether Jalen can do what Jalen does, which is take off and make plays with his legs. But they're so accustomed to not putting pressure on the quarterback in practice that it's going to be a change of mind. That, we want to make Jalen feel this, but we don't want to hurt him because he's got the bum ankle, and they don't want to hurt him anyway because he's their starting quarterback. I don't know if they can even get the right read that they'll be looking for to make that call on him. So it's kind of tough to make a call on a quarterback, as you say, still relatively early in his career, as to whether in practice can even give you enough information to make the right call as to whether to put a guy up there. The guy was the all-time greatest as far as I'm concerned. See if you agree or disagree with this. The guy would basically never practice. Every single week, the practice reports would come in injured on the sideline, not practicing, questionable for the game on Sunday. And then he would play every single week. And you could never tell that he missed. If you didn't know, if they didn't have to report it, you would have no clue whatsoever that this guy was not taking any practice snaps all week long, and then would show up on Sunday and play the way he was supposed to play, basically on a week-in, week-out basic. Guy in the last 20 years. Who do you think I'm referring to?
Didn't practice at all, showed up and played. Are we talking about a quarterback?
Correct, the quarterback.
Who didn't practice?
Top level quarterback too. Top 10 basically throughout his entire career.
I mean, there's a lot of guys. I mean, Brett wouldn't practice a lot, Brett Favre, because he was always banged up. But he played
every week. This guy was absolutely the same as Brett Favre. I think maybe even more so.
No, I don't know who you're going with as far as not practicing. The way Brett played, he would always be banged up, and obviously he would always go. But who are you?
The guy I'm remembering. And yeah, if you're looking at the lines of the games every single week, you look at, should you factor that in? Oh, he's not practicing. How will that affect this game? Steve McNair. Ever practiced. He never practiced. He would, as soon as the season would start, I think he kind of jaked it and said, I've determined I don't need these practices, so why should I practice? And he'd come out and be Steve McNair every single week, even though he never took a snap in practice.
He was a big physical guy as well, and he took a beating. Those two, that's a good one. Those two are very comparable in the fact that they always showed up. But it does happen later in their careers, obviously, when they've proven themselves and they understand the offense and they're deeply, deeply entrenched in it. I think it's a lot different for young quarterbacks. Typically, when they can't practice, they don't play. So it's big. And, Jalen was able to finish the game, but that happens all the time as well when you're in the game and your adrenaline is up, you're able to finish things, and you're very sore. That's how Nick described it. So it could be everything from it's certainly not a high ankle sprain, which are the most difficult to deal with. Those are multi-week injuries. It's probably a low ankle strain and sprain, and that That could be a 1 to 2 week injury. And he might fight through it. But because of his style of play, I think it makes it more of a question mark than anything else. And the fact that if he's limited, we talked about this with Les Bowen, as I said, we brought it up. It's not about, even missing a game. It's about, can he be effective if he's limited? Because ultimately he's going to get banged up. And then, boom, it happens. It's funny how that works. It's just the way you play this game. I gave you a Jim Marshall story. I'm going to give you a Mick Tingelhoff story today,
Okay.
Jody. Mick, we were talking about guys who played consecutive games. So he was a Hall of Fame center. It played, we talked about Jason Kelsey. He's got this ridiculous games played streak. Well, Tingelhoff was a 240 playing center in the NFL. And he had a backup, and his name was Godfrey Zornbacher. I remember because
where can you spell that, please?
It's such an interesting name. So somebody was talking to Godfrey one day, and he called himself the third string center. He was the backup center, and the guy said, "Who's?" And the reporter asked him, "Who's ahead of you? Is there somebody I missed? I guess who's the backup center?" And he said, Tingelhoff and Tingelhoff hurt. The backup is Tingelhoff hurt because he's going to play. So he considered himself the third string center.
That's funny.
And there's Kelsey's very much like that. I don't even question. Jason left the game for the longest period in a very long time. And I thought he was going to be ultimately sit down, and all of a sudden he's back in there. And he's another guy we have to keep on. We have to keep an eye on. We have to keep an eye on Miles Sanders today, Jordan Howard today, Jason Kelsey, Jalen Hurts. But of all of them, I'm pretty confident Jason Kelsey's going to be the one that plays.
Agreed. I don't think we talked about this Monday. I know you made reference to the coach not knowing as to exactly whether he was or wasn't in and out of the lineup. How many plays did Jason come back for before Driscoll went out and Herbig came in and first filled in for Jason?
Not many. It might have been a drive or two, but it was kind of lucky that part of it worked out for the Eagles because it wasn't Kelsey didn't come back in the game because Driscoll got hurt. He had already come back in the game, so that was the timing. It just lucked out a little bit for them. And Driscoll obviously officially went on injured reserve yesterday. So the Eagles, it's pretty amazing. I was going through it, Jody. We've got, they're at 4 right guards, 3 right tackles, 2 centers, 3 left guards, 2 left tackles. That's what the Eagles have been at this season, and they still have unquestionably a top 5 offensive line. We'll see if it continues without Driscoll. I think it will. For some reason, they don't seem to think of Nate Herbig as a starter, but he's always been relatively effective when they put him in there. You might even see some Suo Peta. I don't know how they're going to go, but it's pretty amazing attrition for the second consecutive season. And they've really, really done a good job getting through it.
One quick offensive line question, then I do want to jump to something else with the Eagles and quarterback position. They elevated Brett Toth from the practice squad. You knew somebody was coming because of the injury to Driscoll and the fact that he's now on the IR for the entire rest of the season. I know you've told me before, and you get more information on it. You see it because you're there at practice. It's limited. It's more so than I do because I never go down there. But your sources have told you that they really like the Coyote. They had a chance here to potentially elevate him because both he and Toth are on the practice squad, and Toth got the call. Positional decision. Toth is just further along. They still think Coyote's a ways away, kind of like maybe the way they looked at Mailata in his first year. Yeah, we love him. We got no chance to play him because he's so green. We're not putting him in there, but we still love his potential. I'm sure your sources are still giving you information if you're getting it on what the Eagles think of Coyote. Why Brett Hart, the guy getting elevated this week?
Well, one, yeah, Brett's obviously ahead of him. Brett made the team and had a really good training camp, and then they had to do some roster maneuverings. So that's part of it. That he can play outside as well. They consider Coyote more of an inside player at this point, even though he played tackle in college. They consider Toth more of a tackle. So when you think about Driscoll, he had been playing right guard, but remember his natural position is right tackle. He's more of a tackle than a guard. So he served two purposes when I talked about those issues on the offensive line. He was also essentially the backup right tackle as well. If Lane Johnson went down.
Right. When Johnson was out, that's where he played.
Yeah. That would be the maneuver. So Toth can kind of do that as well. And they have Herbig and Opeta already to play inside. So I think it's more of having the extra guy who can play outside, because as we all know, and we all talk about Andre Dillard, and I thought he played well at left tackle when he was forced in the lineup, but he can't play right tackle, and that part of it's not good. So they need that extra body who can play right tackle just as a contingency.
All right, J-Mac, two more things before we let you run and go get your COVID test in. About the Eagles quarterback position, Jalen Hurts injury, we'll find out later in the week. Is he going to play? Can he play and still be effective running the ball, or can he be effective if he is limited in his ability to play? We'll get some more good info on Jalen Hurts if he plays, and we don't even know. It could be a zero as far as new information goes, or it could be something that we can add to the mix of the evaluation. I kind of feel bad because I'm a fan, and I almost compare it to a dating situation. Right now, as far as my relationship with Jalen Hurts and my evaluation of can he be the quarterback of the Eagles going forward, up until Sunday, I was feeling good about it. We had gone out on some seriously nice dates, and I was smiling. But I had never asked for exclusivity. We were still in the dating phase. Some people had already broken up with Jalen Hurts. Others had already proposed marriage to Jalen Hurts. I was still in the dating phase. And yeah, it wasn't a great date this past Sunday. So I do have a wandering eye. I'm sorry to say. I almost feel like I'm cheating on him, but since we're not exclusive, I think I can do that. We know the situation with all the quarterbacks who've been talked about. Could they be traded? Deshaun Watson doesn't want to come here. Oh, by the way, Russell Wilson looking a little old since he got back from the injury issue that he had. You and I both agree, no shot of Aaron Rodgers coming here. Let me run one by you. And I think we've touched on this before, but let me double down on it. If Deshaun Watson is traded, his preference is to go to Miami. He said that we know that they actually got a little further along in conversations than any other team for Deshaun Watson services. The owner made a request that had no chance of happening, basically torpedoed the talk by saying, I want him to settle all those suits ahead of time. Gave him like 2 days notice before the NFL trade deadline. Yeah, he was going to be able to settle all those things, Stephen Ross. Yeah, right, that was happening. But by the time next season rolls around, we'll certainly have more information about Deshaun Watson and his suits, and maybe the Dolphins do have the ability to pull a trade. Tua Tagovailoa has looked significantly better the last several weeks. He's at a quarterback rating of over 100 4 of the last 5 games. Dolphins have won 4 in a row. I have continue to be a huge Tua fan from the time he came off the bench to lead Alabama to a championship, making the biggest pass of the game to who, John McMullen?
Devontae Smith.
Devontae Smith, that's correct. So we know that connection works. I have been, I'll continue to be a Tua fan. If this Jalen Hurts thing is not resolved by the end of the year, we're sitting here and we're still going, yeah, but he's good. And he does things that no other quarterback can do. And we like that. But his percentage of completions, his ability to make all the throwing plays, I don't know. He didn't do enough of. What would you think if the Eagles decided to trade for Tua Tagovailoa?
It wouldn't bother me at all. From a personal standpoint, I don't think they're looking in that direction. I haven't heard anything that they had any interest when he wasn't playing as well as he's playing, as you mentioned right now, Jody. Never heard the Eagles connected with Tua. Didn't seem like they evaluated the player to the point where they would want to go in that direction. Because remember, if they want to move on from Jalen Hurts, they want to move on from somebody who they think is a significant upgrade. Bottom line, they want to move on for a top 10 quarterback. That's what they've been looking for. That's what they thought they had in Carson Wentz. That's what they think they need to win consistently, and they're probably right long term. They consider Deshaun Watson to be that player, that type of player, not the only one. They would have traded for Deshaun Watson if it were on the table, and Howie Roseman got the green light to do it. If he could pull it off, and there were a lot of extenuating circumstances with the legal stuff, but before you even get to the legal stuff, you can't get past the fact that, he didn't want to come to Philadelphia and he had a trade. He could block any trade. So it never got out of the gates. But from the player perspective, yeah, as I always call them, he's an FU player. They consider him an FU player. I do not think they consider Tua that type of player. And I don't even think they'll engage in conversations. I think in that kind of circumstance, they would continue on with another year of Jalen Hurts. But anything can change if he continues to play well. But if he continues to play well, maybe he's back in the mix in Miami. And they say, well, we don't want to deal with the headaches of Deshaun Watson. And maybe that's the butterfly effect the Eagles need, because you can say, I don't want to play here, I don't want to play here, I don't want to play here. But if the places you want to play don't want you, if you want to play, you're going to have to open up your mind and say, all right, I'll go here. So maybe that back door, so to speak, opens up for the Eagles. So a lot of moving parts, but the bottom line is I have not heard any interest in this organization in that particular player. So, right. And I think that is the bigger thing to me.
And you've got your finger on the pulse of that, so I take what you're saying is right on point. I just disagree with the Eagles. I think Tua is going to be. I think he's only going to get better. Had issues last year, got hurt this year. This is the first real good group of games that he's put together. I don't see any reason why he can't continue to do that and continue to get better. And you're right. We still got 5-6 games to go in this season, so there's that much more evaluation time. I think that the kid's going to be a Stone Cold winner in this league, and the Eagles should have a higher evaluation of him. But that's just me. This week's opponent, the Jets. Interesting thing, and I heard the D coordinator, JG, reference this yesterday, that they've got many sources to get information on the Jets. Number one is the Jets tape from their previous games played this year. Number two is the preseason game these two teams played. You're just looking for tendencies and plays that you're not necessarily the actual play level of the guys, because it's the final preseason game and a whole bunch of reserves that aren't even on the Jets or the Eagles anymore are out there making plays in that game. But also the joint practices they had together that you were in attendance for. Do these two teams know each other that well? We look at it from an Eagle perspective. Oh, they know the Jets. They had so many chances to look at the Jets. This is a major plus. Well, the Jets had the same chance to look at the Eagles just as much because both teams were there and on the field. How much of the knowledge between these two teams of each other is a factor in Sunday's game?
I think a little bit, but I remember talking to Nick about that at those practices, actually. And he said, by the time we do play him, it's going to be whatever it is, week 13 or, game 13, exactly. Whatever it is. But, and he's like, there's a lot of moving parts. Things are going to change. They're going to be different. We're going to be different. So I mean, there's some things, the philosophy. They know the philosophy of the organization with Joe Douglas very well, and they understand what they, we were just talking about quarterbacks. Now, the Eagles loved Zach Wilson. If they could have figured out a way to get up in the draft to get Zach Wilson, that would have been the guy that they would have gone in that direction. But they knew early in the process that he was out of the realm of possibility. So they loved him as a player coming out. I don't how many quarterbacks have the Jets used? 4, Jody?
Oh yeah, Zach,
Mike
Mike White with his 400-yard game, who was going to be the next savior of the organization. Oh, he threw 4 interceptions the game thereafter.
Josh
Joe Flacco and Josh Johnson have all played for the Jets this year.
So they have so many, moving parts during the season, and obviously, but Robert Saleh from his time in San Francisco, Mike LaFleur, what he wants to do. So yeah, I think they know him better. I think they know the Jets better typically than you would know an out of conference opponent. You look at Denver, a team you go out to Denver once every 8 years, and you only play them very sparingly. You don't know that much about them. Because of the interesting preseason relationship that has gone on forever between the Eagles and Jets, they do know a little bit more about each other than typical out of conference foes. I will say that.
All right, last one, and then I know you got to get out of here because you got to go down and get tested. Tapping into your always impressive knowledge of the general manager of the Philadelphia Eagles, Howie Roseman. It's draft day 2022, and the Eagles, let's say the season winner right now, kind of a weird thing. I saw this yesterday. I meant to bring it up on the show, didn't. If the draft were to take place right now, the Eagles would be drafting at numbers 8 and 9. They're picking the Dolphins.
Yeah, it's like the Jersey Turnpike draft. What do we got? Jets got 2, Giants got 2, Eagles got 2.
Jets are right now 4 and 5. The Giants right now are 6 and 7, and the Eagles right now are 8 and 9. You're gonna have 6 picks in the draft made by only 3 teams. 3 different teams with back-to-back picks in the first 10 picks of the draft. Let's say we're sitting at pick number 3, and the Jets are picking at 4, and the phone rings in Eagles war room, and it's Joe Douglas calling his old buddy Howie Roseman, and he said to Howie, "Listen, Howie, we got 4 or 5. We've got some leanings. Probably know where we're going to go. You're sitting there at 8, 9. We'll give you Zach Wilson for 8 and 9. Did the Eagles make the deal?"
Boy, I would tell you, the Zach Wilson coming out this year, yes. They loved Zach Wilson. I think that was the number 1 player on their board, with the exception of Trevor Lawrence, because Trevor Lawrence wasn't on anybody's board because obviously everybody knew he's going number 1. So he was scratched off. And that was the one player at obviously the most important position that they considered. We talked a lot, up to the draft and how it shook out, about Justin Fields. And for whatever reason, they didn't evaluate him in the same type of category, same type of level. I would say yes, but I don't know why the Jets would do that. So I'll
give you the Jet logic. I'll play Joe Douglas. They made a mistake. Not that Zach Wilson can't play, that Zach Wilson isn't as good in LaFleur's system as they thought he was going to be. That they evaluated his abilities and what he could do and fit into LaFleur's system, and it just hasn't been a fit the way that they thought it was going to be. Still can tell the world that they love the player, they love the talent. The Eagles are getting a hell of a player. It's just we miscalculated what Zach does well and what we want to do as an offense, that's the way they would sell it, that they would be taking. Yeah, they're the second pick in the draft. 1 year later, you're trading away for the 8th pick in the draft. Now, the balancer, of course, is the 9th pick in the draft. So you're getting 2 for 1, but you're trading down from 2 to 8. I think the Jets could sell it if they wanted to go there. And I've heard some rumblings to the effect that that is, at least in part, in place, that the Jets might actually think about something like that. Now, the whole thing with to be able to do something like that is they got to love one of the quarterbacks in the draft. They have to believe that if they don't think Wilson's a fit for their system, that Kenny Pickett is or Matt Corral is, that some quarterback in the draft this year is, because they're going to have to turn around and replace Wilson. If that's the case, you think Howie Roseman would pull the trigger?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Eagles like the player. I can't imagine why they would look at this season and say he's, unsalvageable. Similar, to Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he's not playing well, obviously, but people realize the situation. They realize, it's not like he doesn't have the talent to succeed. And I always say you got to keep developing players that have to be in the right system, the right scheme. I think the Eagles would talk themselves into it. So many moving parts. I mean, the Jets as a whole, I can't imagine them doing it because, they swung. It's not Joe Douglas's fault, but you have Sam Darnold as a top 5 quarterback. You have Zach Wilson as a top 5 quarterback. You're going to go
one more time. Jump back into the pool again. Come on, let's go.
Now, people move faster today than they ever have. Now, even going back 10 years, I would say, no way, Jody. No way a team is going to admit a mistake. And by the way, I don't even agree with that. If you think you made a mistake and you're clear, it's best to move on as quickly as possible. But we know that's just not realistic, or it had not been realistic in the NFL world for many, many years. Teams do move quickly and more quickly than they ever have before. But boy, this organization as a whole, I can't imagine they would give up on the kid that early. I would start to think if Robert Saleh and Mike LaFleur are saying that behind the scenes, they better be careful, because they'll start thinking they made a mistake with the coaching staff more than the kid.
Yeah, I do think that's in play, and that's what the Eagles will be facing this week, the Jets. And oh, by the way, 3/4 of the season in, almost. It doesn't look like the time to move on from Sam Darnold decision was the wrong one, because Sammy hasn't done next to anything down in Carolina.
Yeah, real quick, Jody, though. Nick Sirianni, trust me, he wants a pocket quarterback. He wants somebody who could sling the football like Justin Herbert or something like that. But he's making do with what he has at the quarterback position. Some weeks better than others. That's your job as a coach. If you're saying you're not even a year in and you got injuries on top of it, and you're saying, the second overall pick isn't it doesn't fit my offense. I'm showing Mike LaFleur the door, to be honest.
And there are some people that think that should be the case up in New York. All right, last one. I keep dragging this out with you. I need the John McMullen opinion. The John McMullen evaluation, not what the Eagles would do, not what information you have about who the Eagles like, who the Eagles don't like. I'm just asking you, John McMullen, you're the general manager of the Eagles. Here are the 2 trades on the table. Which one are you making? Zach Wilson for number 8 and number 9, or Tua Tagovailoa for just number 9. Let's say you can negotiate. They ask for 8. You tell them, no, you're only getting 9. You got to give up. Maybe you could even get them for that Colt pick. I doubt it. But if you got to give up the middle pick of the 3 Eagle first-round picks right now, which trade would you rather pull the trigger on? Wilson for 2 high ones or Tua for 1 high one?
Can I take door number C?
If you can create it for me, and it can be on par with those 3 trades.
I have no moral compass. I take Deshaun Watson for pennies on the dollars when he realizes the door is shut. Otherwise, he waives the no trade clause, and I go get the proven option. In other words, I don't want either of those guys. My personal evaluation, I don't want either of those guys.
Okay. And, by the way, if this is deal or no deal, that's a no deal, because Deshaun Watson says it's a no deal. I understand it can trade somewhere down the road, change, but to this point, he said no deal.
I'm lobbying.
You can continue to lobby. Guess what? You're gonna get used to another Jalen Hurts year, buddy. Because if you're turning down both Zach Wilson
I
and
would do that. I would take another bridge Jalen Hurts year rather than go after. And I know this team really likes Kyle Hamilton. I don't know if they're going to be in a position to get him. That's the safety from Notre Dame. Yep. I think that might transform their defense a little bit because he would be the type of player, the moving part that you can move all around. I'd rather just stay and wait for the quarterback I really, really like. Now you're saying you were asking me.
Yeah.
Like I said, the Eagles really, really like Zach Wilson coming out. I don't know if anything has changed from that perspective. So they might think differently.
Fair enough. J-Mac, may your nasal passages be as clean as they need to be.
Yeah, that's always a sneaky worry. I shouldn't have anxiety over that.
No.
But, all right.
I had to go get. I'm drinking coffee today, as you can see. By the way, I had to go get my blood work done yesterday. I always get in there. All they're gonna do is prick, boom, get out the door. But you never know what they're gonna find. Then I'll find out from my doctor on Friday when I go see her. All right. J-Mac, we'll do it again tomorrow. Thanks, bud. That's John McMullen here with us on Birds 365. All right, we're kind of strapped today. A little miscommunication. Who's going to be on? Who's not? We're pretty damn confident that Jason Cole is going to join us next hour. NFL writer, Hall of Fame voter. Very good spot to have on. But that's next hour. The boss man is coming in. I guess. Well, when in doubt, turn to the boss. Right? It's kind of his show, so he's got to be able to pick it up and run with the ball when you throw it to him. Joe Kraus is going to join me next, right here on Birds 365.